Today's lesson is titled Adding and Subtracting on the Number Line. And your objective today is I will use the number line to add and subtract fractions with like denominators. So again, we're going to be working with only fractions that have like denominators, which mean the bottom number in the fraction is always going to be the same. So first we're going to do the following problem in our notes. Sammy has 6/8 jar of red paint. He uses 2/8 jar of the paint on a model airplane. What fraction of the jar does Sammy have left? Show on a number line, and then remember, we always need to simplify if needed. So let's use the cubes method to look at the problem. So first is to circle any key numbers. So I have 6/8 jar of red paint, and he uses 2/8. I then am going to underline the question, which says, which fraction of the jar does Sammy have left? Then I'm going to box key words, uses and have left. Then I'm going to evaluate, and those two words help me figure out that I'm probably going to subtract to find my answer. Now I'm going to solve. Now if Sammy has 6/8 jar of red paint, that is how much he is starting with. So we are starting with 6/8 jar of paint. And we know that we're subtracting from the key numbers or the key words, and if he uses 2/8, that's how much we're going to subtract. Now we could figure out the answer because of last lesson we was just subtracting fractions, but in this case it says that we need to show on a number line. Now if you remember from the last topic, we learned how to put fractions on a number line. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to look at the denominator. The denominator is going to tell us how many parts we're going to break our number line up into. So it tells us that it's going to be 8. So we're going to start with 0, and then our last number is going to be 1. So we're going to break this up so that we have 8 tally marks. So I'm going to split it in half, and then I will split this in half, this one in half, and then each of these in half. So now I know that this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8, so that's 1 whole. Well, if I look at my problem, it says that I'm starting with 6/8. So where is 6/8 on the number line? Well, we have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. So this is where I'm starting on the number line. Now, if I am going to be using up if I'm going to be using up paint, that means I'm going to have less than what I started with. So that means we're going to move to the left on a number line. So if I'm using 2/8, that means I'm going to move backwards 2/8. Well, if I look at it, moving backwards 2/8, so moving backwards 1/8 would be 5/8, 2/8 would be 4/8. So this is moving or subtracting 2/8. So if I look at where I ended at 4/8, which that is my answer to the subtraction problem. But we're not finished because we need to simplify if needed. So that's factor out 4. We have 1, 4, and 2, and 8 is 1, 8, 2, and 4. So we see that 4 is our greatest common factor. That means we're going to divide both the top and the bottom by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2, so it is 1/2 is our simplified form. So now let's try the following problem. Mark starts to ride his bike to Juan's house. After 6/10 of a mile, he gets a flat tire and must walk 3/10 of a mile. What is the distance from Mark's house to Juan's house? And then show your work on a number line, simplify if needed. So we're going to use cubes. So our key numbers are 6/10 and 3/10. We're then going to underline the question. So what is the distance from Mark's house to Juan's house? Then we're going to box key words. Well, if he starts to ride his bike and then must ride it, and we want to know what is the distance, then we're probably going to evaluate it by saying it's going to be an addition problem because we want to know the total distance of something, which means it's going to be addition. Don't forget that we need to show our work on a number line and we need to simplify if needed. So if we're looking at, we know that we're going to be starting, we know that we rode our bike 6/10 of a mile, and that we walked 3/10 of a mile. So to show this on a number line, we look at our denominators. Our denominator tells us that we're dealing with tenths, so we need to make sure that we divide up our number line into tenths. So we have 0 and 1. Then we make sure that we have 10 tally marks. So I like to divide in half, and I know that half of 10 is going to be 5. And then I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1 would be 10/10. So here is the 1/10, here is 5/10, and this would be 9/10. So if we look at our problem, we know that if you're starting to ride your bike to someone's house, you're starting from point 0. You haven't gone far at all, so you're starting at 0. So then it says that after 6/10 of a mile. So we're going to start at 0, and we're riding our bike 6/10. So 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10. So here is 6/10. This is telling me that a starts at 6/10. Okay, then we walked 3/10. So 1/10, 2/10, 3/10. So this is how much we walked. So then I know that how far is it to Juan's house? Well, it's 9/10 of a mile because I went 6/10 of a mile and then I went 3/10 of a mile. So all together, if I'm going to add those together, the denominators are the same. So 6 plus 3 is 9, and we keep our denominator of 10. So my answer to the question, what is the distance from Mark's house to Juan's house? Well, it would be 9/10 of a mile. Now we do need to make sure that this is in simplified form, and the factors of 9 are 1, 3, and 9, and the factors of 10 are 1, 10, 2, and 5. They don't have anything in common, so we know that 9/10 is in simplified form. So now I want you to look at the following number line and decide what is the equation that is shown on the number line. Now since we are moving forward, if you are moving forward on a number line, that means it is going to be an addition problem. So now we need to figure out what did we add. So we first need to think, okay, how far did we go the first time? We went to 1/4. Then we went 2 more fourths, which ended at, this is our answer. And if we look, 1 plus 2 is 3, and we keep our denominators the same, so this is 3/4. So if we look at the following number line, I also want you to try and represent the equation that is represented in the number line. So again, if we're moving backwards, that means that it's going to be a subtraction problem. And where the arrow is pointing at the very end is what your answer is, which is 4/10. So now we have to think, where did we begin? Well, we began at 7/10, so that is where we're starting from. And then you need to count how many you went backwards. You went back 1, 2, 3. You subtracted 3/10 to get to 4/10. And you can check your answer by saying 7 minus 3 is 4. We keep our denominator the same as 4/10. Now, if I was going to make sure I simplified my answer, I would have to factor out 4, which is 1, 2, and 4 are its factors. And 10, we have 1 and 10, 2 and 5. They each have 2 in common. 2. So we're going to divide both the top and the bottom by 2, which is 2/5. So 2/5 is our simplified answer.